Hi, this is Ashlee Froese coming to you live from CAFA, and this is part of a new initiative that's brought to you from CAFA, and they're bringing a lot of experts to the field to help you navigate this crazy time. First time I've done Facebook Live, so bear with me. Gotta tell you, I'm uncertain if the lighting is right. It's not my thing. I washed my hair today. That's about as good as it's gonna get. So what we're talking about is really, I'm going to be navigating the way through coronavirus and also the government stimulus package. So I'm going to be trying to guide you, hold your hand as much as I can. I've always believed that knowledge is power. One thing I do have to say, though, is that this is very much of a moving mark. There's going to be a lot of changes. I think the government has been very agile in how they're operating with this. So the information that I'm giving you is current as of April 1st, as of yesterday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to jump on with Trudeau's message at 11 o'clock today. I had client meetings, but I've done my best to make this information as current as I can possibly make it, considering that there's a moving mark and there's been a lot of changes. But the good news is that the government is responding to our needs and is being agile. Okay, so for those that know me or don't know me, I am a branding, fashion, and entertainment lawyer. I've been practicing for about 13 years. I was on Bay Street, launched my own firm. I've been very involved within the fashion community throughout my career. I've been an advisor with a mentor with CAFA, advisor with the Ryerson Fashion Zone, mentor with Toronto Fashion Incubator, co-chair and on the board of FGI for 6 years. So I've definitely, I'm quite involved. And what I'm trying to do is empower people with knowledge. So this is what we do in terms of our law firm, how we can help you. We can help you with grant applications, contract agreements, copyright, trademarks, corporate law, domain name, marketing and advertising, packaging and labeling, social media law, internet law. And so we really try and be a sort of one-stop shop for our creative industry clients. We also have a U.S. lawyer that's on staff as well, and she can help you as you're starting to work in and target the U.S. economy as well. For what we stand for, we're a paperless office, we're a certified women-owned business, our business cards are made from recycled clothing, fabric, etc., etc. Okay, so I'm just going to jump to it and stop sort of promoting myself. Let's just be honest. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is take you through the whole what has been happening. There's a lot of information that's going around. And sometimes I've found that the news covers it in a summary way, but doesn't give you the big nuts and bolts of what's happening. And so I'm trying to really distill that information down to a way that's going to be very practical and hopefully will answer a lot of the questions that you may have. And to be honest with you, it's a lot of detailed information that you might even know you have questions because it's overwhelming and it's an overwhelming period of time. So basically, on March 11th, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 to be a global pandemic. That day, the Canadian federal government issued $1 billion package that was aimed very much at the healthcare system. So it provided $50 million into the public education, $500 million into the province's healthcare systems, $100 million into First Nations and Indigenous healthcare systems. They also invested $275 million into medical research into COVID-19. There was a package set aside for personal protective equipment, which has been supplemented since with a couple $2 billion. And also Canada is supporting WHO's investment into less developed countries and their management of this. At that time, and this is back in March 11th, the government had said, look, we've got some things set aside for helping with economic measures, but there's more to come. So they've said, we're going to waive the 1 week wait period for employment insurance and extend the work share programs. There was a promise of more to come. So that was to happen March 11th. By March 18th, the government had announced a tentative package deal to help with the economic stimulus package. They had originally said it would be about $82 billion on March 18th. And, you know, there were some things, there was 10% employment wage subsidy, blah, blah, blah. By March 25th, they had bolstered it significantly, and they had passed legislation called the COVID-19 Emergency Response Act. And that is the mechanism from which the government is going to enact a $107 billion package aimed at the economic ramifications. So to that end, you know, some like the government, some don't like the government, some are pro-Trudeau, some are against Trudeau. Whatever your politics are, know that the government is acting very quick on this, and they're also pivoting quite quick to sort of deal with the issues that the Canadian businesses and Canadian society are dealing with. And that for me is comforting. So we've got the COVID-19 Emergency Response Act. And what it has done, it is made temporary tweaks to existing legislation, such as the Income Tax Act. And it has also created new legislation. One is a temporary piece of legislation called the Canada Emergency Response Benefit Act, and the other one is a ongoing piece of legislation called Public Health Events of National Concern Payments Act. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit Act, that's the mechanism by which the CERB, and I'm going to get into all of this stuff and explain it to you, that's the mechanism by which we can start to access the $2,000 monthly sort of income stream. And then the Public Health Event of National Concern, this is something, a new piece of legislation where basically sets money aside where in the event that this kind of thing happens again, and unfortunately there are going to be these kinds of viruses that do happen, but the government, it's encouraging to me that the government is learning and pivoting as it goes. So it created the Public Health Event of National Concern Act, which basically says that if there's a spread of an infectious disease such as, similar to COVID-19, the government has already got this piece of legislation that they can trigger like that, and they can enable the government to acquire medical supplies, to provide assistance to provinces and territories, to help with the cost of safety and emergency responses, provide income support, and fund federal health-related programs. So not relevant for right now, but know that in the event that this happens again, we do have an opportunity to respond very quick. And so that's silver lining, I guess. Okay, so let's get into, and hi to everyone that's joined. I see my sister's there. Shout out for her. So let's actually get down and delve into the $107 billion package. The way they have divided it, they've compartmentalized the funding that's available into two segments. I'm a hand talker, I do apologize. $52 billion of that 107 is set aside to inject cash directly into Canadian workers and businesses' hands. The other $55 billion is used for tax deferrals. So one is sort of direct support, and the other one is to assist with short-term liquidity support. And I'm going to get into that as well. Okay, so let's talk about the CERB. The CERB is a new program that has been created. And one of the things the governments are telling us is, look, when we create new programs like this, it normally takes 2 years of deliberation, of planning, of execution, and we're doing this in a 2-week turnaround. So there might be hiccups. It may not be as perfect. And because of that, that's why we're seeing pivots and pivots and pivots. So this is information that is relevant and current as of April 1st. It may very well be, because I know that they're recording this, it may very well be that this is going to be something that is going to change in a week or two or a month, who knows. So as of current, this is available for employees, contract workers, and the self-employed. It provides $2,000 monthly income injection capped at 16 weeks for workers who lose pay because of COVID-19. Currently, this program will expire on October 3rd of 2020. So who qualifies for this? Workers who stopped working because of COVID-19, workers who are either sick or quarantined, or who are not able to work because they are a caregiver to someone that has COVID-19, a working parent who's taking care of a kid because the schools are shut down and they cannot continue to work, that would help. And also it's available to shift workers who are employees, sorry, itchy nose, who have no shifts. So we're sort of thinking about maybe it could be a makeup artist who's an employee of a retail store and there's no shifts and they're paid in that kind of way. It would be available to those. And then contractors and self-employed people. This is centralized through the Canada Emergency Response Benefit Program, which is a new program. Ergo, that's why we have the new piece of legislation. And the government is diligently working to create the actual mechanics of that program, the software behind it. So the program is being created, and the application process is anticipated to open on April 6th, which is Monday. And what's interesting is note that they've sort of phased out who can start to apply for the CERB program, and it's phased out on April 6th. It's for people that are born in January, February, March. April 7th, it's for people born in, April, May, June, et cetera, et cetera. What they're trying to do is to make sure that there's not going to be a crash with however million people running into CERB now. The payout is anticipated to start 10 days within the submission of your application. And that is going to be either paid by way of check or paid by way of direct deposit. Every month, so you can start to receive it in April. I have a cat, by the way, and she's going to be a celebrity sort of guest appearance every once in a while. I do apologize. So you're going to have to confirm your status every month that you're receiving the CERB programs. Now know that if you're receiving income support and did not properly qualify, there was a notice about a week ago from Trudeau. He said you will have to repay it without interest. But I've been listening to and reading voraciously statements from the government, watching Trudeau every day, really trying to keep an eye on, oh, here's the cat, jeez Louise. So trying to keep an idea of what's going on in this. And I've been hearing more and more a discussion from the government that they're saying, look, this is not a free-for-all for people that just want to start to get free money from the government. If you're manipulating the system, there will be penalties. So they did say that if you get this, you access this, and you didn't properly qualify, then you will have to repay it without interest. Okay, so the eligibility requirements of the CERB, you have to be residing in Canada and have a social insurance number. You have to be 15 years or older. You have to have earned an income of at least $5,000 in 2019 or in the past 12 months preceding the CERB application. And know that that $5,000 threshold can be through a combination of employment, self-employment, maternity or paternity leave, and you don't have to, that income does not have to be from within Canada, but you have to be residing in Canada and have a valid social insurance number. So it's not going to be available for those who, even if they do qualify, they're not living in Canada at this point. It has to be because you ceased working because of COVID-19, either directly or indirectly, and you're the caregiver, right? So caregiver of someone that's sick, caregiver of a kid, and you can no longer work because the kid school is shut down. So it's got to be a direct impact of COVID-19. And also you have to receive no income for at least 14 days within a 4-week period with the expectation that there's no employment income coming in. So that's the CERB program, and that's the $2,000 a month program. I gotta stop fidgeting with my hands, my goodness. Okay. We also have another program which is available for businesses, and this is the Employee Wage Subsidy Program. And this is instituted through the CRA. So most businesses already have a system set up with the CRA. They've already registered with them because they're doing their taxes online, et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to be available through the CRA program, whereas the CERB, the $2,000, is available through the other program that was set up. This is eligible, and we have to remember there's the letter of the law, but there's the spirit of the law as well. The whole purpose of the government doing this is to really try to create a trickle-down economy injection to make sure that the economy doesn't go bankrupt. So the government is setting aside money, $2,000 for people that are caregivers, so that they can continue to pay their bills and live. And then we've also got money for employers to provide income support to their employees so that they can continue to operate. So this is something that is available, backdated to March 15th, and is available for the next 3 months. May or may not change. We got to see how we're managing COVID and the impacts of it. As of right now, an employer can get 75% subsidy of an employee's wage only if the company has seen a 30% decrease in the gross revenue from this time last year because of COVID-19. There is a cap on how much wage subsidy is eligible. So it's the most that the government will pay is $58,700 per employee, 75% of that. But then it's not so clear like that. It's whichever one's more or less. It's intended for companies to retain their employees. So it's an employee wage subsidy. It's not take this money, lay off all of your employees, and use that to buy product, for example. There is a good faith expectation, but not mandatory, that the company will top up the outstanding 25%. And again, there has to be a confirmation on a month-by-month basis. So really, the government is saying, look, businesses, we are going to help you to keep your employees retained. So again, it's this trickle-down economy type of situation. Now, remember how I said that things are pivoting? You may have heard from last week, and it was part of the $82 billion original tentative package, that there was a 10% wage. That's overrode. This is the jam now. So the employer eligibility requirements to get the employee wage subsidy 75% credit is you could be an individual, you can be some partnerships, it can be a non-for-profit, it can be a registered charity, and a Canadian controlled business, private business. You have to have an existing business number. You have to operate a payroll program account through the CRA. So I don't think that if you're a business that has structured all of your employees or your workers to be independent contractors as opposed to employees, and you're not paying EI and CPP, et cetera, as part of your employment situation with your workers, you may not be eligible for this. You have to pay a salary, wages, business, but you have to be operating a payroll on payrolled workers through the CRA. One thing, some are like, well, what if I just change the agreement so that it's no longer an independent contractor to become an employee? Just be careful with that, because if you start to switch your situation, it's possible that your employees might be able to come after you under Employment Standards Act, for example, if you're changing their status or if you're manipulating the system. So you have to be very careful and strategic on what are the longer term implications on how you manage this. And on the employees side, they have to be an individual that's employed in Canada. Okay, so there's also an opportunity for workers that are eligible through EI. Generally, an unemployment insurance or employment insurance is available for 55% of normal weekly earnings up to a maximum of $573 a week. In the COVID response, this hasn't changed so much, but what they have changed is a couple of tweaks. There's a 1 week waiting period normally to claim EI. That's been waived. You can get on EI immediately as long as it's processed. And there's also, if you have an EI sickness benefit, Normally, you would have to have medical certificate. They've waived that too. They allow for a leave of absence for up to 16 weeks if it's related to COVID-19. And I believe that you can receive EI for up to 45 weeks. The eligibility requirements to be eligible for EI is you have to be employed. You have to have lost the job through no fault of your own. So there's no flipping the table, flipping off your employer and, walking out the door and cashing in. Not going to happen. You have to have worked for a required number of hours. That changes according to the provinces in the last 52 weeks. You have to be ready and capable for work, and you have to be actively looking for work. Who is ineligible to claim EI if you voluntarily left, if you've been dismissed for conduct, if there's a union labor dispute, or if you were jailed. Hopefully no one in our community was jailed. So here's the thing also. Yesterday when I was listening to Trudeau, he was very clear that if you're choosing between an employee wage subsidy or a CRB program, you have to choose one. It's an either or proposition, and you cannot double dip. And he was very strong in saying, look, this isn't a free-for-all, and there's going to be penalties for manipulating the system. If you're choosing between EI or CEB, if you've stopped working or your hours have been reduced to zero because of COVID-19, apply for the CERB. That's $2,000 a month, which works out to about $500, which is somewhat comparable to EI. If you're an individual that's already receiving EI, stay with EI and you don't need to reapply. If you're an individual who's already applied to EI but the application has not yet been processed, you don't need to EI. You don't need to reapply for EI. For individuals that are receiving EI and those EI benefits are going to drop before October 3rd, because remember CERB is from May 15th to October 3rd currently, it's possible that if your EI stops on July 1st, for example, and you satisfy the qualifications or the requirements for the, I gotta get rid of this pen, it's not a good look. If you satisfy the qualifications for CERB, you might be able to apply and top up through CERB. There's another program that's available, and I heard from one of the employees that works at the government that manages this, that not a lot of companies are, EI is inundated, CERB is going to be inundated for sure. There's another program that apparently is being underutilized, which might be an interesting thing and an interesting strategy and a way to pivot. So this is called the work sharing program. It is non-specific to COVID. It is always operating. And basically what it is, it's an adjustment program to help employers and employees avoid layoffs where there's a temporary reduction in the business that's beyond the control of the employer. This is not available for seasonal businesses or when it's cyclical and you know that you never host events during December or something like that. It's something where it's outside of the control, it's unusual for the business. And this program provides income support to employees who are eligible for EI, and the employees must agree to the reduced schedule of work. So it's really an employee-employer sort of agreement with each other that, look, the employee gets that there's not as much work, the employer wants to keep the employee, and together they come up with a situation that they both agree upon, and there's a vested interest for them to continue to work together, et cetera, et cetera. The tweak that the COVID-19 Economic Benefit Plan is that it's increased from 38 weeks to 76 weeks. And what's interesting is because this is a continual program, it's not COVID specific, it could go for longer. So this is something that might always be available to you, not just a closing date at October 3rd. What's interesting also is that the government has requested as part of the submissions that you have to have a business recovery plan. So let's say, for example, put it in the fashion world, let's say that you are a brick and mortar location and obviously sales have gone down exponentially, but you have a e-commerce platform and you're really going to start to build that up. It might be something like that. In order to qualify for, I just want to check the time and make sure that all is good. Yeah. In order to qualify for the work sharing program, the employer has to have been in business for at least 2 years. So startups, no bueno, but if you've been 2 years or more, that's good. It can be a company or a non-for-profit. The shortage of work is temporary and beyond the control, and there's been a 10% decrease in the profits. Whereas with the employee wage subsidy, that was a 30%, this is a 10%. So that's interesting. And it can't be a cyclical, seasonal, recurring slowdown. It can't just be part of your business or industry. It's got to be something that is a bit more unusual and exceptional. Remember, this is an employer and employee collaboration. They both agree to this. So for the employee, they have to be a core employee. They have to be eligible for EI. They have to agree to the reduction in work. And it's possible also that some contract employees, may be eligible for this too. So that might be something that you can start to look into as well. Okay, let's talk about taxes. So you remember how we talked about how there was the $107 billion, and then half of it, or not half, like 52 was for one part and 55 was for the other part. And one was direct money in your pocket, $2,000, for example, or the 75% wage subsidy. And then the other part was liquidity to help you keep money in your pocket. So if you needed to, pay some bills on a more immediate basis. The government has made small tweaks, temporary tweaks to the Income Tax Act, where they basically extended deadlines. So dealing with personal taxes, and the personal taxes, this will also be relevant for individuals, for your own personal taxes, but also the sole proprietor as well, because you don't have a separate entity that deals with its own taxes differently. So the tax filing deadline is extended to June 1. You don't have to pay your personal taxes until August 31st, and there will be no penalties for that delay in payment. The one thing is, I hope that as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, you do have an accountant. I found in this time that working with my accountant has been really important. And if you know me, I always talk about having a board of directors of life. It's for shit like this is where you need it. You need your financial planner, your accountant, your lawyer, all of the people that help you make these kinds of decisions when shit hits the fan and it's overwhelming and complicated and scary. So the one thing that I want to be very careful with, don't think that if you have money set aside to pay your personal taxes, if you're, strategic and you plan things out, don't think that it's just money in your pocket and you can spend it and ball out and, all of this stuff. It is going to be money owed, and it will be money owed in September. So be careful and use that as if you really need access to the money, do it. Now, do you want to extend your deadline and not file until June? You can do that for sure. I filed mine because I want to know what is my liability and how am I going to plan to pay for that. I always think that having a strategy, and of course I'm a lawyer, so I can't help myself, but having a strategy and having all of the information so that you can start to plan is important. So yes, you can wait until June 1st. It's up to you and what you want to do. You're not going to have to pay until beginning of September, but you will have to pay, so be cautious with that money. Corporate taxes, similar situation. Now this is for corporations, right? Or non-for-profit, someone that has a separate legal entity from themselves. You are going to, when you have a corporation, you have corporate taxes and you have HST, and these are separate types of taxes, and they've been given a different extended deadline. So if you are paying your corporate taxes, you have until August 31st to pay, and there's no interest on the deferred payment. They've also deferred HST and customs duties, but that's only until June 30th. So you can hold on to your money a little bit more. You have to be careful about using this because it will be money owed. So HST, customs duties, June 30th, corporate taxes, August 31st. Don't have to pay it now, no interest accrued, but you will have to pay it, so be careful. The government has also tried to bolster Canadian businesses' access to funding. Some businesses are saying, well, look, we can't even afford to keep on more debt. That's not going to work for us, but there are options for you. The government has provided access to capital, non-interest loan for businesses that have a payroll between $50,000 to $1 million in payroll. This is eligible for small businesses and non-for-profit organizations, and this is for the operating costs. Wage subsidy was for employee payroll. This is for operating costs. Your payroll has to be between $50,000 and $1 million. They will give you $40,000 interest-free, and there is a $10,000 debt forgiveness if you pay it off. I believe it's within 1 year's time. So that's something that you're getting $40,000 for $30,000 at no cost. It might be something you want to look into. Operating costs, maybe you're taking your retail and you're pivoting more significantly into your e-commerce platform, for example. The government has also invested more money into Business Development Canada and Export Development Canada to provide credit, this is loans, with a small interest rate, for small to medium and large businesses. They have also expanded the scope of Export Development Canada as well. I'm just checking the time. Okay, I'm going a little bit over. Apologies, Donna and Vicky, but this is important information. They have also invested more into social justice issues. So the Childcare benefits package, there's going to be additional payments of $300 a month. If you already received that, you don't need to reapply. If you're for a low-income household that get a GST credit, there's an additional payment of $400 per person. You don't need to reapply. There's some, but not much, help for seniors. If you're a student and you have student loans, there is debt forgiveness for up to until September 30th. You don't have to pay. And then, of course, there is increased funding for homeless shelters, abused women and children, Indigenous communities, and also Kids Helpline to help with mental health support. It is possible that there might be industry-specific bailouts. We hear rumblings of it. We're not sure. But what was interesting when I was reading through the draft bill, because this is what I do in my spare time, yay, go lawyers, they did put in there a clause that said there might be additional funding available if it's deemed to be in the national interest to deal with exceptional circumstances. Is this going to be a bailout for airline industry, retail, restaurants? I don't know, but it's possible. And so it might be something that your industry organizations might want to start to talk about lobbying and getting our voice out there, etc. The one thing is also, and God, it's so awful to have to say this in this time, but there's scammers out there, and there's been a lot of instances of scammers sending text messages pretending, or emails pretending to be from the government, where they're like, oh, you're eligible for the CERB, $2,000, give us all your information. Do not do that. Do not respond. Do not open it. Delete it immediately. The only time you're going to be eligible is if you've registered through the CRA or registered through the CERB, which are both from the Government of Canada website. Thing is also, be cautious of not inadvertently scamming the system. You know what I mean? It's not a free-for-all. This is really money that is supposed to be there to help people that are really struggling. And so don't start to think like, oh, I'm going to convert everyone to be this kind of employee or this kind of employee, or fire, but say I've got them and use this for this, and just play by the books, because the government is increasingly saying, look, we're watching. We're doing this on a trust basis. It's online submissions, but we'll come after you if you're starting to mess with the system. Another thing also you want to talk about is what other relief may be available. So that's for the Government of Canada. Talk to your bank, talk to your landlords. The Canadian government reached out has bolstered the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation to stabilize Canada's housing market, which, as you may remember, that was the issue that happened with the 2008 economic crash in the States. So the government has bolstered our mortgage situation, our housing and mortgage entities, so that the banks will have more flexibility to defer mortgage payments for personal or corporate. So that is something that is dealt with on a case-by-case basis. You might want to also loop in loan payments as well. Talk to your bank on that for sure. In terms of people renting, Ontario hasn't been so strong with that, to be honest with you. Mayor Tory, Doug Ford, they both reiterated that you cannot, you can't evict someone, but there's no rent retrieval right now, but it's all negotiations, and it's up to you to advocate. You want my help with that? Let me know. So that's it. I hope I answered some of your questions. If you want to reach out to me, you have specific questions, by all means, our firm's website is www.froese, F-R-O-E-S-E law.com. My email is Ashlee, A-S-H-L-E-E, at Froese Law, F-R-O-E-S-E law.com. I'm going to do a very quick sort of go through events because, truth be told, I wanted to make sure that I'm getting everyone's information. Lots of highs. Appreciate that. Let me see. One here. If you're an employer and my employees apply for the CERB, can I still apply for a 75% wage subsidy? Can some employees have one and some of the other? Or as an employer, do I need to treat all the employees the same? Well, so the government has said you pick wage subsidy or you pick CERB. It is a one or the other situation. Bear in mind also, is it an employee or is it an independent contractor? So there's some questions that it requires delving into to make sure that we're giving the right answer. So for that, it kind of depends on what the fact scenario is and what the implications are on that. I hope that that somewhat answers your question. Okay, I've got a new comment below. Again, so it kind of depends if it's an employee or not. You know, I've tried to give as much information as I can on all of the different programs that are available and what are the different requirements and eligibility and restrictions. So hopefully you are taking notes, and if not, I believe that this is going to be sort of recorded and shared, and by all means, please, please, please reach out to me as well, and I can do what I can to help you on that. So I realized this whole time I have a different screen and I've been talking to myself, but I should be talking right here. I do apologize. So the next Live with CAFA will be Tuesday, April 7th with Carla Wood. Carla is an award-winning business strategist and founder of All Strategy, and she'll be answering your questions and offering guidance on short-term and long-term business strategies during COVID-19. And you can email questions to live@cafaawards.ca. So that's LIVE at CAFAWARDS.ca. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Reach out to me and let me know if you have any other questions. I hope I provided as much information as I could. And bear in mind also that this is a moving target, and the government is pivoting based on what's happening in the marketplace. So the information I provided is relevant as of April 1st. It may be changing, so always stay tuned, and I'll try and keep you as educated and up to date as possible. Take care, be well, bye.